Blessings, everyone. Welcome to the new Just Us Speaks podcast. From Just Leadership, I'm your co-host, Lester Young.
And I'm your co-host, Hakeem Cramden. Just Us Speaks is being produced to amplify the voices of directly impacted people, particularly the voices of formerly incarcerated people.
Just Leadership was founded on the principle that those who are closest to the problem are also closest to the solution, but too often further from the resources empowered to affect positive change.
So right here on our first season of Just Us Speaks podcast, we're interviewing leaders from the most recent 2022 cohort of Just Leadership's USA's Leading with Conviction leadership training program.
Today, we're talking with Keeda Haynes. Keeda is a federal policy analyst at the National Council for Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. She's also a senior legal advisor at Free Heart, a nonprofit organization led by women that have been formerly incarcerated.
And as an assistant public defender in Nashville, Tennessee, for 6.5 years, Keeda devoted all of her determination, her energy, and her passion into fighting for her clients in the courtroom and also in her community.
In 2002, Keeda was sentenced to 7 years in a federal prison for a crime she didn't commit. The United States Supreme Court remanded her case, and eventually she was resentenced to a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years. After her release, Keeda enrolled into law school at the Nashville School of Law and became a practicing attorney. Shout out to you, sis, for even putting forth that work to get that. Shout out to you.
Thank you.
For sure. And Keeda continues. She continued to serve her community on the Juvenile Justice Realignment Task Force, receiving several awards. She continues to educate and advocate on behalf of the community, focusing on criminal justice reform, incarcerated women's rights, voter restoration, and various other issues.
In 2020, Keeda ran for Congress for the 5th District in Tennessee, receiving 40% of the votes against an entrenched incumbent. Additionally, Ms. Haynes has written a memoir entitled Bending the Arc, My Journey from Prison to Politics. Keeda, welcome to the Just Us Speak podcast. Listen, before you jump into this, I'm extremely excited right now to know that you was able to push through all of that dark days and to be able to stand in this sun and bathe in this sun and continue to change this narrative. Thank you for joining us on this Just Us Speak podcast. Thank you, sis.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
What's up? Tell us about who you are outside of what we just read. Like, who are you? Like, the world don't know. You got 40% of the votes. Like, that's huge. That's huge. Yeah. So who are you?
I mean, I am just, a girl from a small town here in Tennessee. I have one sister, 3 brothers. I love reading, love Broadway plays, love the ballet. I am an introvert, which some people find that hard to believe, but I am. And, and I'm just, I just really am just a person like I value people, I value relationships, and and just really just am a person that just really believes in community and really just believes in, giving back, to the community, which, embodies the work that I do. I always say, we always have like, these mission statements and things, with work. But for me personally, I really believe personally for myself that I am not free until everybody is free. And so that guides not only the work that I do, but it also guides me in my personal life, because I want to make sure that I am free, spiritually, emotionally, financially, and want to make sure, that others are able to, to experience that same level of freedom as well, too. And so that's why I say, like, not only do I incorporate that with the work that I do, but also incorporate it in my personal lives as well, too.
Mm-hmm.
That's phenomenal. It's powerful. It's a powerful vision. So let me ask you this. You just graduated from Leading with Conviction. Congratulations once again. Powerful network and family to be a part of. So I want to ask you, really, define for us, what leadership really is for you. And also, what was your favorite, part of the program of Leading with Conviction?
Outside of saying you the best coach, not saying that you was her best coach, don't say that part. Don't be biased.
Hakeem was definitely a good coach, but I will say this, in saying that, the relationship that Hakeem had with us exemplified leadership, right? Because it was not just as if he was the coach and I'm here to tell y'all what to do. It was just like, hey, like we're the same and we're one, and let's have conversations about this, and then let's see how we can figure this out together, right? So that was, you know what I'm saying, that was really important, and I really love that. And because for me, that is what leadership is. That is what leadership embodies. It is not someone that is, telling, somebody constantly what to do, but it is somebody that says, hey, you know what, let's figure this out together and let's walk this thing out together. Right. And so, and because I'm just a firm believer in, I don't like, systems of hierarchy and stuff like that or whatever. And so I really appreciated that leadership, with Hakeem. And like I said, it really exemplified what I envision leadership is. Like my favorite thing about Just Leadership, and I wish we could have been in person because, again, like I said, I value relationships, and just really getting to know the various different people that we were in the class with, and, and seeing what they were doing, and hopefully we can build on that and build each other up and just help one another succeed in whatever it is that we're all trying to do here. So that was my favorite part. And like I said, and just really looking to continue to build up on that.
We just interviewed Lana, and your cohort member, and she was just telling us a story of how you displayed and showed true leadership when she was really talking down on herself, not really putting herself where she needs to be, and how you got her on a call and you start encouraging the heart, because that's one of the 5 practices. You immediately saw that she needed to be encouraged, and you spoke to her as a sister, as a woman who are going through this very similar journey that she's in, and you gave her that motivation. And I just want to tell you, she shot you out earlier and really was saying that how powerful that was to even have that conversation with her, to just encourage her, because she was constantly putting herself down. And I mentioned to her in the interview, it's like you displayed what that leadership looks like, because we know the 5 practices, one of them is encouraging of the heart. As a leader, we have to really take on that role of encouraging the heart of those that we see in our network. So I just want to tell you that your presence was well received, and she really, to this day, even after the graduation, she still holds that as something dear to her. And I just wanted to say thank you for displaying that leadership. We're looking at, when we're talking about all of the challenges that we see, like obviously when you ran for Congress for the 5th district in Tennessee, you saw a problem there. You as a person getting out of a prison situation, doing all what you needed to do, and you went against one of the most an incumbent person who's been entrenched in this position for all of those years, and you got it by 40%. So that leads me to, what is your vision for the future? Are you going to run again for a political position? Are you going to challenge this structure again? What is your vision for the future?
You know what? I feel like that not only my presence, but all of our presence in these spaces is challenging. You know what I'm saying? That it's challenging. You know what I'm saying? These systems that have been held, in place for so long. And that's why I love to see all of us in these spaces and everybody doing the work wherever they are. Because I always said when I was running, for Congress, and I believe, still to this day, is that it's going to take all of us working in each and every single area where we are to see the change that we want to see, right? Like all of us can't be doing one thing in the same space, because we're all in the same space and we're all preaching to the choir, right? And so I believe that it takes us, just all across this country working in various different areas in order for us to see the change that we want to see. And so that's why I say, it's just great to see all of us in these spaces, challenging these systems, being in spaces that people said that we couldn't be in, holding positions that people said that we could not hold, and, and doing things that people said that we could not do, like just rising above being, second class shadow citizens in this country, right? Like that's what, energizes me. And I, people ask that all the time, am I going to run, for office again? Like that's $1 million question. Like if I had $1 every time somebody asked that, like I literally would be like a millionaire.
And then you can be able to put money towards your campaign and run,
right? Not only mine, but others, right? Because I just have this vision of, of directly impacted people, like really and truly like taking back what's ours, right? And just being in these spaces. And, and if I was a millionaire, that's exactly what I would do is, fund campaigns of directly impacted people. Because that is one of the things that ultimately I would love to do, is to have an organization kind of like Democracy for America, that teaches directly impacted people to run for office, like all across this country, right? And so, but when I decided to run for office, it wasn't something that I wanted to do personally for myself. I decided to do it because I saw a need and just really felt that God was calling me into that space. And so whether I will do it again, will just be, wherever, God is leading and, guiding me to be. And so, I want to make sure that I stay open to that and that I stay open, to not only that possibility, but also, other possibilities that he may present. Because, one of the things that I've learned is that I don't have to be in public office to make the change that I really, want to make. And so just want to, just stay open, to the leading and guiding, of God and what it is that he would have me do next.
5-10 years from now, we see you hitting that lottery or you selling books like crazy around the world, getting this $1 million and reinvesting it back into the community, in the grassroots movements. That's my hope to see. You know what I'm saying? So
yes,
thanks for that. Keep selling those books, continue to speak, continue to lead. That's how we create this other stream that we can be able to get this money to continue to put forth with that. So that's on that.
So Keeda, you're a senior legal advisor and a federal policy analyst for these two organizations. Tell us what that work is, and how does that play out in your life?
So being the senior legal advisor at Free Hearts, that encompasses a lot of things, right? And so I don't really take on criminal cases anymore. But the work that I do kind of coincides with our policy work that we do here locally. So I do indigency petitions because here in the state of Tennessee, in order to get your voting rights back, you have to have paid off, your legal debt and be current on child support and have finished your sentence, right? Tennessee is the only state that requires you to be current on your child support. And so a lot of times, what we see is that people can't get their voting rights back because of this legal debt that they owe. And so we actually file indigency petitions in order for people to have their fees and fines waived so that we can move them through the next step of the process, which is for them to get their voting rights reinstated. And then also, too, there's another piece of that, so the expungement piece. Our expungement law here in the state of Tennessee is extremely, extremely limited. And so just, when people reach out, want to have things expunged, looking at that and trying to, figure out if it's something that can be done. But also, again, because this is about, building relationships, is that, people who are not able to benefit, tell them, hey, look, we've talked with some legislatures about introducing some expungement legislation, come 1st of next year. You are the perfect person to be able to speak as to why this law needs to be changed here in Tennessee. And so are you willing to come in and to work with us? Can we call on you, when it's time to have people to testify, as to why this is needed? And so a lot of it, like I said, is just really, building and maintaining those relationships with people in the community so people don't feel as if there's transactional relationships with them. So it's a lot of that kind of stuff. And then just any type of legal work that needs to be done, within the organization. But like I said, a lot of it is policy work. First of the year when legislators back in the session, we hit the ground running here. We have so many different bills that we introduce around criminal justice reform. And so a lot of it has to do with that. And, lobbying and just, I do a little bit of everything.
We see that. And again, thank you for that.
Just Leadership USA amplifies the power of directly impacted people by investing, educating, empowering, and elevating their voices so they have the tools and resources to self-organize and advocate for themselves, their families, and their communities. Together, we build an equitable, fair, and just U.S. To date, over 1,400 leaders in 45 states and in Washington, D.C. are hard at work transforming people and communities who are harmed by mass incarceration. Please partner with us to bend the arc of criminal legal reform by donating to our leadership programs today. Our network of leaders is strong and growing. Together, we're building local power for national impact. Every donation supporting JLUSA and our leaders has a ripple effect across families, communities, and generations. With your support, we can continue working together towards our singular vision of a just, equitable future for all. To learn more, go to jlusa.org/give2023. That's jlusa.org/GIVE2023.
Looking at just getting a chance to learn a little bit about your story, doing the cohort, leading with conviction, and then it's an opportunity to read some of the stuff on your bio, your accomplishments in your bio. But I see that just that incarceration was that thing that you went in for a crime that you didn't commit, and how you finally got that change in some way. How did I know? I have an idea what that felt like. I know I was in prison, and I know the anguish I felt, even though I committed my crime. But if you're comfortable, could you share with this audience what it felt like to be sitting in a prison cell for a crime that you did not commit? Because that's a rare thing, and Hakeem has a very similar experience as yours, being wrongfully convicted of a crime and serve a substantial amount of time inside of a prison before he was released. I know his story, but I'm pretty sure the audience don't know your story in detail unless they've read your great book, but just tell the audience a little bit about what that felt like. And the second part of that question, was that the thing that fueled you, that inspired you to walk out of here and say, you know what, I'm going to get a law degree?
Well, so when all of this started happening, I was actually in school at Tennessee State University, majoring in criminal justice and psychology. Because when I first went to school, I wanted to be a criminal psychologist. I wanted to work with serial killers, right? Like I just always, there's always that question of why, right? Like, why do people do the things that they do, right? And I mean, I still ask these questions like in my life today, right? And I think and I used to always say this, and I don't think I even really understood what it meant when I would say this, but you know how sometimes it's like we say things because it's just it's within us, but we don't have a full understanding of what it is that we're actually saying in that moment. Because I used to always say that it was better to understand than to be understood. And the why has always driven me, just in every single aspect of my life. And I think it still drives me, right? Because I think that if we can answer that why question, then we can start to formulate solutions. And so that was why, I wanted to be I wanted to work with the FBI, work in the behavioral science unit, all of that kind of stuff, right? I was going to be the next Clarice, from Silence of the Lamb. Seriously, all of that. I've read so many books on serial killers. I think at some point, Mom was concerned that there was some kind of darkness in me because I just really wanted to immerse myself into that. Right?
Understanding the why.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just but I think about it, with what Brian Stevenson says, we're talking about, I'm saying the work that we do and talking about being proximate, right? You have to be, in order for you to be able, to understand, you do have to be proximate, right? So again, I'm doing all of these things and not even really knowing what I'm doing and how it's going to impact, me later in life. But so like I said, I was in school for that, switched my major to, switched it I wasn't majoring in psychology anymore, switched it to major in criminal justice because I was just I don't want to have to get a PhD to do this. I'm not trying to be in school that long, not knowing that I was going to be in school that long anyways, we're going to law school. Yeah. And I said, you know what, I'll just study patterns of crime. So took a legal methods class, and the class was just briefing cases. It was a huge case book. Had no idea what briefing a case was. So the first time I had to do it, I didn't do well, and I talked to my professor, and he explained to me what it was, and it was just it just clicked from that moment on. I remember one of the briefs that I submitted, he told me that out of the X number of years he had been working at the university, it was the best brief that he had ever had submitted to him. And I was already deciding that I was going to go to law school because briefing cases it was just second nature to me. And he was telling me that I should go to Harvard or Yale or somewhere. And back then, Harvard and Yale were not, letting people come there for free, so. Yeah. But it was in the midst of all of that while this was going on, right? We grow up thinking that, we see all of these shows on TV, the good versus evil. We grow up thinking that, that cops are good people, and if the people are arrested, if people go to jail or prison, then they must have done something wrong, right? Like that's instilled in us from an early age, cops and robbers, you know what I'm saying? All of that kind of stuff. Like I said, just good versus evil and all that kind of stuff. So we grow up thinking this, it's entrenched in us. And so I went through the system thinking that, like, I'm not going to go to prison because I didn't do anything wrong.
Mm.
And that was the belief, that I held on to. Of course, that was a naive belief, but again, that was the belief that I held on to, because that, again, what was so entrenched with us. And so when I was convicted and ended up having to go to prison, then I had to start rethinking that, right? Just like, because now I am one of these people that's going to prison for something that I didn't do. And so, so it was kind of like a shift for me. Like, my whole thinking had to change about the criminal legal system and, what it was and, who ends up there and stuff like that. And so it was kind of like a relearning process for me, right? Just believing in, because we grow up and we're taught to believe in systems, right? That in the end, everything is going to work out. And so to be in that and to really literally be in that and having to rethink all of this. And I told myself going in, I said, I could be bitter and I could be angry, but I'm not going to be, right? Because I just felt that if I allowed the bitterness and the angry, the anger to consume me, then I would miss what I was supposed to get there, right? Because, I just really believe that everything happens for a reason, in its appointed time and how it's supposed to happen. And of course, like, I would never, say that I wanted to go to prison, right? But I would not be the person that I am had I not been there. And so while it was unfortunate, it's not anything that I would ever change. And because I got so much, just from being there and just being around, the other women, and learned so much about myself, and just really, I always said that if I can prevent someone from walking in the same shoes that I have walked in, or if I can encourage someone else, then whatever I have been through, it's all been worth it, right? Like, it's bigger than me. And I think that if we get caught up in self, then we miss the bigger picture as to, why we have been allowed, to experience things. And so that's what I always try to do, is that I try not to internalize it, right? Because if we internalize it, we can get stuck there. And even, like working as a public defender, I would get, just like so pissed, like at the DAs and the judges and the system in general, right? With just how my clients and stuff were, being treated and everything, and just, just started internalizing all of that. And I would literally have to tell myself, like, Keeda, you know what, this is bigger than you, right? Like, and when you start to say me and I and this, then you've internalized this, and you're going to miss what it is that you can do in this moment. And so, that's what it was there, for me in prison, is that, I didn't want to internalize it. I wanted to say, what is the bigger picture here? Like, what am I supposed to get out of this? So that I can, be able to be the person that, that I have been called to be. And so that's the way that I chose to look at it. I know different people look at it in different ways. Was I still shocked about the entire process? Absolutely, right? I remember thinking like it was like an out of body experience, that I was literally watching somebody else go through this, that this was not me, that this could not be my life, right? Like, in a minute, I'm going to wake up from this bad dream, but you don't, right? Because it's not a dream, it's reality. And so it's just like, well, what do you do with that, right? Like, what do you do with this new reality that, of course, that you didn't choose for yourself, but what do you do with this new reality, right? A lot of times when we go through things in life, it's not because we choose to. I think of, like my old boss, like when he lost his son, to suicide. That was a new reality for him. And of course, like, he would never choose that, but it's just like, but what do you do with this new reality, right? I'm saying, that I find myself in, and, and how do I work, from this? How do I work out of this? And how do I, make sure that that, someone else can benefit, from my new reality. So that's how I chose to look at it. And that's how I continue to look at it.
Like, yo, that is powerful. Like, there's so much that we don't have enough time to unpack that, Keeda. Like, I really want to dive deep into that. But just for the sake of our time, I would just say that I hope that whoever gets a chance to listen to this podcast, that they find some type of redemption from what you just said. It's about perspective. It's not all about how it hits you. It's about your response. And I'm so thankful that you chose that path, because now you are the woman that you are and doing the work that you are, because you didn't internalize it. You asked the question, like, why? What could I get from that? And that's a very powerful perspective. Hakeem?
Yeah. And I'm glad you closed it with that, because one of the things you mentioned earlier is about, you had this pursuit to understand things, to why, that question you posed, about really wanting to be to understand more so than to be understood. Mm-hmm. And that's a very selfless, philosophical approach in life. That's powerful. So that of course indicates how great of a thinker you are, and the things that you've accomplished, the papers you had to write to get the degrees you had to write shows us in fact that you know how to research and you're a great penetrating thinker. So I want to ask you a question about, while you were incarcerated, was there a very inspirational book, right, that inspired you, or did you discover an inspirational leader that really motivated you and moved you during your incarceration? Or was there both? Was there an inspirational book and an inspiring leader that you were able to benefit from and perhaps model some of your leadership after?
So yes, there were both, right? And so I will say that the women there were leaders for me, right? Like, I was young when I went to prison. I was in my early 20s. And that's the time in your life where you figuring out who you are and what you're doing. And, and I go to prison, right? And again, we've seen these shows on prison, and it's these, what they portray is these hardened, people that have lived this hard life and, this and other. But I mean, there were women in there that were professionals, women that had been CEOs of their own company. I mean, just women that were amazing. Like, I was like awed at the women, like at what their lives were, before coming to prison. Like, I mean, like, it just was not what I thought, women in prison were. But even so much more than that, because I remember when I got resentenced, right? Like, we just all knew that I was going home, right? And it was just like, because most people end up pleading guilty, particularly in the federal system. Like, what is it, like 97% of cases end in plea. So most people don't go to trial. And so what comes along with people taking these pleas is that people don't have really any options to get out of prison, right? Whereas because I went to trial, I still had all of my appellate rights. And so it was just like, even though the women did not have the same options that I had available to myself to get out of prison, it was just like they didn't hate me for it. You know what I'm saying? They rejoiced because I had that and they didn't, right? So, we just all knew that I was going home when I went back to court to be resentenced, and, and come to find out I didn't. So I had to come back to prison. And I was, really, really upset about it. That was kind of a turning point, like in my, faith journey, right? But the women were amazing. Like, they was just like, oh, but your sentence got reduced. Like, so you're still going to go home, but like before you were supposed to. And, and just, being able to lift me up, right? When I needed it, that was, I mean, like, again, that leadership, right? And so it was just so amazing, that even in the midst of, all of this, when they had no options, right? And then I feel bad because I'm complaining about, I am going home early, just not when not now, but, these women had, 10, 15, 20, 25 year sentences, right? And I mean, and I mean, in the grand scheme of things, like a day in prison is too long, but their sentences well exceeded mine. And here they are, like lifting me up, right? And so, again, so that was leadership. But I also read this book by Beth Moore. And I just remember this portion of this book that I read. And she gives this analogy And she's talking about like change, but she's also talking about how we do the things that we grow up and see, like in our environment, right? And that shapes us. And until we see something different, then that's who and what we will be. So she gives this analogy of this dog that had puppies, right? And the dog that had puppies only had two front legs and did not have two hind legs, but was a perfectly healthy dog outside of that. And so because the dog didn't have the two hind legs, the dog could not walk like other dogs walk. So it would have to, use the two paws and then scoot, two paws and scoot, right? Has, a litter of puppies. And the puppies are born with four legs, right? But they see their mom two paws and scoot, two paws and scoot. So what do the puppies do? That's what the puppies did. Because the puppies didn't know that they had four working legs and could walk normally. And it was so eye-opening, and it still is as they are. I always refer back to that because it's just like, again, that answers a why question, right? It's just like, why, are these puppies that have four working legs, walking as if they don't? Because that's what they see their mom doing, right? And until they are able to see and experience something different, they're not even going to know and understand what their full potential is. And so, it just resonated me just with so much just about, who we are as people, the things that we do, and, and what we need to change, right? And so I live by that. And that was one of the reasons why, I also wanted to run for Congress, because I thought about, my clients and, and their kids and, and what they had, lived through and experienced. And it's just like, what, if people can just see something else, then maybe they will strive to be something different than what, they are constantly seeing, that if people are giving just, that opportunity, how much more, would people be if they're giving just that one thing, or if they see just that one thing?
No, I was just thinking about when you say this, the move and then and slide. Think about that environment. Like a lot of us come up in environments where we are unable to see anything outside of the environment. And even though these puppies still had working legs, they emulated what they saw.
Yeah.
And that says so much about our community. You know what I'm saying? This is why, again, I believe that we have to really, truly push to transform our communities. Because if you're stuck in a bottle, only thing you're gonna do is believe that that's the only place. Deanna said something to me a while back that still resonates with me. She said, if the bowl that fish is in, that's the length that fish will grow in, and you got to think about, like, if you want to grow in life, you got to get out of your little small bowl and go into a larger pond, into a larger river to grow. And that's the beauty of that, so I love that story. But also
and I want to say something else to that too, right? Because I, believe in it. And like I said, I feel like that all my life I've just been constantly like pushing myself, right, to grow, right? And I think that's what it is about. And so, and I always say that we have to push ourselves outside of our comfort zones. And I heard like this talk one day about this lady, we always hear about, fake it, fake it till you make it, right? And she was just like, no, she was just like, we're doing that all wrong. Fake it till you become it. And I was like, yes, like that's what it is, like, because we want to become this thing. Like, we don't want to just like fake it till we get there and then we're still the same person, right? Like, we want to become this thing. I was like, yes, like
like over with, right? Like it's done.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Don't fake it.
Makes perfect, essentially.
Yeah, right? Man, that goes. Yeah, go back again. It just brings me to like one of my mentors when I was in prison. He told me, say, what is going to be your biggest challenge when you get out of prison is that you're going to be stuck here. If you don't change this and see yourself different, you're going to always stay stuck here. So he said that when you get out of prison, Lester, go buy you a nice suit, nice pair of shoes. Even if you don't have a job, you don't have any money, he said, you have to start seeing your success before you do that success. So he was like, go get a cup of coffee. If you don't like reading the newspaper, find a book and go sit into a busy place where you see people constantly moving and they're successful. He said, because you need to see it, you need to feel it, and you need to be able to touch it. And that's what I did for a couple of months. Even to this very day, I do it. When I feel like I'm feeling a little off, I normally go into these environments with something on nice. I go and eat dinner by myself and these different things. So I love that part of it. You know what I mean? Because I think if we see it, we can stop believing that we are.
We are so excited to invite you to the Just Leadership USA 9th Annual Benefit Gala, Monday, June 5th, 2023, at PhD Rooftop Lounge at Dream Downtown in New York City. We're excited to bring JLUSA leaders, allies, and advocates together in person to unite around our shared values and propel our vision for the future. During the last year, we've made significant strides in building our capacity and infrastructure to become the only national systems change movement and policy table led by and for directly impacted people. This coming June, please join us for our first in-person celebration in over 2 years. Learn more at jlusa.org/gala. That's jlusa.org/GALA.
As we getting a chance about to wrap this out, listen, this has been fire. To me, this has been fire. You know what I'm saying? I love the energy that you bring to this podcast, and being that you're our second guest, thank you for this energy. I know it's kind of early. I appreciate it. You know, but as we winding down, I'm thinking about like this is in all of the work that you're doing, all of the passion that you have, and all of the things that you really just putting yourself in because you want to see change in the world. You want to see change in the community, see change in the world. When you're not doing that, you're sitting there reading these novels and writing books and doing all this other stuff. What is Keeda doing for her in regarding self-care? Like, what are you doing for you, sis?
I particularly like since the pandemic and, you know, with running for office, because like when I was a public defender, there was always something else to do, right? You know, we have this fictitious mentality that we can save the world being public defenders, and we can't. And there's always something to do, right? And even when I was running for Congress, there was always something. And, you know, and everybody wants, you know what I'm saying, like every moment of time that you have, right? You had like literally no time. Everybody wants access to you. And so one of the things that once, you know, all of that was over was that I really, really like made sure that I set boundaries, right? Because again, like I said, I'm an introvert and I know that about myself. And I know that you constantly being around people, like I don't get my energy from that. I get my energy from within. And so I have to have that time for myself, even if it's just sitting and doing nothing. Even, you know, so many times I'll be at my house and the TV will be on and I can't even tell you what is on the TV because it's just noise. And I am just being, right? And so that's where I get my energy from, is that I have to just be. I have to allow myself to just be, whatever that is in that moment. And so for me, like I said, I love the ballet. I love plays. And so I will do that. You know, I love reading. And I tell people all the time, like, I don't read all these heavy books in my, you know what I'm saying, in my time. Like in my time, like I read like, you know, I escape to another world. Like I read like romance novels, you know, like in some shape, form or fashion, because I have to take myself out of that, because this is the work that we do all day, every day. And so, you know, and so for me, it's those types of things. It's just finding things that I enjoy, doing those things that I enjoy. Like, you know, we don't have a lot of plays here in Nashville. And so I'm, you know, going to be going to New York, you know, hopefully at the beginning of December, because I want to go see Phantom of the Opera before it's gone from Broadway, you know what I'm saying, forever, right? Like those are things that I have wanted to see and wanted to, you know, do. And so, you know, so those are the things that I do for me, self-care. And then, you know, I have a, you know, a circle of friends. I love spending time with my friends. I love, you know, just hanging out with my friends and just being, right? You know, and then also too, I love going to the mall. You will see my social media posts. Anytime I am in any city, you can guarantee that I'm going to find a mall. I'm going to find somewhere to go. Something, because for me and you know, and it's not even always about just buying stuff, but to me it's most of the time I go by myself, because it's just like just being by myself, just being in that moment. And if I see something I want to buy, you know, I buy it, and if not, then that's fine. You know, it's just spending time, you know what I'm saying, like re-energizing myself so that I can go back out here, you know, and continue to be effective and continue to do the work that I do. So yeah, it's just, you know, I'm not much into working out. I know some people do that, and, you know, hats off to them for that. I'm
one of them people.
Hey, look, and I admire those people that do those things. But yeah, it's just, you know, being able to spend time with my friends, to go to lunch with them and to say, hey, what's going on in your life? Like, tell me about you. What's going on there? And just being able to, to be present in the moment with them. Like, I love those. I love that. Because like I said, it's all about relationships and building and maintaining those relationships. And so, yeah, so I have learned, because I have in my life, I have been a person that's been a perfectionist, right? That's an insecurity all within itself. And so within that, with overcoming that, I have allowed myself to be, and that's freedom all within itself.
Nice. Hakeem, like, yo.
Powerful. Yeah. I mean, your concluding thoughts just on self-care alone is powerful enough to summarize my own concluding thoughts. It's been wonderful interviewing you for the JustUs Speaks podcast. Excited to be a co-host on the show to interview great leaders like yourself. And so my name is Hakeem Crampton. So thanks again for joining us, Keeda. Appreciate you.
Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. And looking forward to, to all of the other great voices that you're going to have on this podcast. I'm excited.
Keeda, my name is Lester Young, as you know, and just wanted to say, what are some of the final thoughts that you want to leave our audience with, that those who want to get a chance to hear this podcast, whether in the society or even inside these prison walls? What is a word of wisdom you want to close with in this podcast?
I think the last thing that I said, because it is what I live by, and it is what freedom is to me. Just allow yourself to be, like, whatever that is, in whatever space that is, like get to know who you are and walk in that. Because to me, like, that is the ultimate freedom. It's not being what somebody else wanted me to be, not doing this, not doing that, but who am I? And allowing myself to really be that person, right? Like, so often, like, we grow up and we can't be who we really are just because of, what society says in this. Like I said, I'm an introvert, but you can't be an introvert because that means you're standoffish or you're stuck up or you're all these things, right? Like, no, like, I'm an introvert, I'm Keeda, and I'm just going to be, right? And so that's just what I would tell people, is just to really find out who you are, embrace it, and just walk in it and just be, like I said, wherever you are.
I think we can get a Just Leadership shirt that said, just be.
Yes.
Just be.
Yes.
Like, thank you, sis. We really appreciate it. Thank you for that energy, as I said, that you brought into this space. I love that energy, and I'm pretty sure that those who get a chance to hear this podcast, they're going to be truly inspired. Thank you again. I got so many thoughts. We're going to wrap it up right here. Thank you, sis.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.